The Protestant section of the Discord has been talking about Protestant contributions to art recently. That's been a subject for like the past week or two. And what comes up over and over again is that Protestants' main art form is music, right?
Yes.
Especially because we, are kind of down on the icons and even perhaps down on like church architecture and stuff like that. A lot of Protestant artistic energy gets funneled into music. And it's something very characteristic of every form of Protestant, really, to have its own particular musical flavor, right? Martin Luther was a hymn writer. The Wesley brothers were hymn writers. Like,
Yeah.
what would African American Christianity be if it didn't have its music? It seems mostly a musical,
Yeah.
coherence
Yeah.
more than it is a doctrinal or ecclesiological coherence.
Yep. Yep.
And charismatic, like early wave, charismatic or Pentecostalism has its own kind of music. And then, like megachurchdom, probably the most authentic thing that they do is have their own musical tradition.
Yep. Yep.
Right? That's one of the few things they don't appropriate.
Yep.
Is that they actually generate that themselves for themselves. And Protestantism's musical tradition often overflows into popular music, and sometimes the direction is obviously in the other direction. But I would say most of the time throughout history, it's actually the church's music that then spills over and gets appropriated by
the
secular,
culture.
by the culture. And maybe that's starting to wane a little bit now, but it's hard to say. But it's not, Protestantism isn't just like all music goes all the time. One of my favorite, I don't know, periods or subjects of history that I'm really fascinated by is the development of blues music. I had like a period of my life where I just loved blues, studied blues, learned all of my favorite guitar players and all that sort of thing. And in the 20s and 30s in the South, when blues music was really coming into its own, there was black gospel music and black blues music, and those things were unmixable in
Yep.
the minds of their respective audience,
Yep.
right? If you started being too bluesy in a gospel setting or a gospel recording, they would recognize it. They'd be like, that's the devil's music, or very harsh language like that, and say, you can't bring that in here, right? And sometimes, and like various guitarists or recording artists, they would have their gospel name where they were Father Deacon such and such, and then they would have their blues name where they were Blind Mississippi such and such, right? And they would record their different music, but they had to split their persona to be able to be popular in both genres. So it's not like Protestantism doesn't recognize that music has power, and that in that power there is danger, and that there aren't lines that should be crossed. And in fact, they're often more aware of it, really, than other traditions, because in many ways, music sort of captures and expresses the spirit of various forms of Protestantism better than anything else does. And they know when their spirit is getting contaminated by something that could lead it astray. And it's interesting how, especially in African American traditions, that's in musical styles and flavors. And so anyway, I'll stop there for now.